Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another edition of CardBlitz. This is your host, Kelly Reed, and your co-host, Greg Smith. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Kelly. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Just kind of gearing up for the weekend, and we got some big football games on the docket.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got word here that we're gonna get some snow on Tuesday here in beautiful sunny Navarre, Florida, right on the coast. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm excited for the weekend's games too. We're gonna talk about cards a little bit, but I mean we're gonna also talk about other stuff, sports just in general. So we'll kind of incorporate the cards into it as we go. And I've got some thoughts on the games this week, and we can talk about each one of them individually if you want, however you want to do that. But um, you know, Saturday you got a good slate. I mean, you got the Texans and the Chiefs playing in Kansas City, and to me, I mean, Kansas City's probably going to win this game. But what I've noticed and what has been written about quite a bit lately has been how ordinary the Houston defense makes quarterbacks look. I mean, Josh Allen had his worst game by far. Herbert looked pedestrian. They got to Tua pretty bad. So, I think anything really could happen in that game. So that's my thoughts on it. Kansas City will probably win, but Houston's defense is going to keep it interesting. So, what's your thoughts on that game,
Well,
Kelly?
I was going to agree with you as far as KC will probably eke out the win. I don't think that it's going to be as convincing as what Vegas is thinking. Then
Yeah.
again, by luck, it'll probably be a blowout. But I imagine, though, like you said, Texas defense will keep it pretty tight. I do think, though, that between Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, man, they've got so many tricks up their sleeve. So they're going to make some magic happen there.
Right, right. I agree, and I think the wild card is Steve Spagnuolo with the defense in Kansas City putting pressure on Stroud. I just don't think Houston has the offensive weapons to beat him. So I think we're in agreement there. Kansas City's probably going to win that game. So should
Yes,
be
sir.
close though. Um, what's your thoughts on
Okay.
Washington and Detroit, man?
Dude, Washington surprised me by beating the Bucks. I would have taken Tampa all day on that one. I think the Lions. I mean, they've had a week off, obviously, but I think they destroy the Commanders. I don't think that Washington will match up well in that environment up in Detroit. I think that defense that Detroit has is it's spot on, and that defense wins games, man. So I'm going to go with Detroit.
I'm also going to probably pick Detroit there. I think that them having a week off was crucial at this point in the season. They've been decimated on defense by injuries. I don't think the Commanders have the horses to stay with them with their offense, honestly. And David Montgomery, I'm hearing, might be back, and Jameer Gibbs is a beast.
Mhm.
So you couple Detroit's offense with the crowd. The crowd is going to be fired up. They're so starved for playoff in Detroit. I probably predict about 4 or 5 false starts from Washington's offense, especially early in the game. So I think Detroit wins it. I think they win it pretty easily. I don't think it's going to be a rout, but I think it probably would be along the lines maybe of Detroit 31 and uh, Commanders 20, something like that. So far we're in agreement. I've got Detroit and Kansas City, and it sounds like you do too. So Saturday's game should be pretty good. Um, then we go into Sunday where you've got the Rams and the Eagles. This is the early game. So I'll start with my thoughts on that one. Um, I think the Rams basically got Minnesota on a downswing. Sam Darnold has really kind of started playing like Sam Darnold again the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I don't think the Rams are a legitimate contender for the conference championship game. I think the Eagles beat them, and I think they beat them pretty easily at home. So um, it's looking to me like it's going to be an Eagles and Redskins or an Eagles and Redskins. Good Lord, an Eagles and Lions championship game, which is what everybody's been calling for the last month. So we'll see what happens, but I think the Eagles win that one pretty easily. I just don't think the Rams are on their level really. So what's your thoughts on that
Well, I
one?
was gonna say, based on the weather alone from Philly, it looks like horrible weather, really cold temperatures, coldest it's been in a few years. Um, Rams, I just, warm weather West Coast team. I don't think that they will do well out there, out east. Um,
Yeah.
I think that the that Hurts and Barkley, they're going to take it to the Rams. So I would agree with you. I would take Eagles definitely by 10 plus.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's. I don't think. I think out of all the games this weekend, that has the potential to be like the biggest margin of victory. So, we'll see. But and then why don't you lead off with your thoughts on the big game of the weekend, man?
Man, that Sunday night is 5:30 Central Time is going to be huge between the Ravens and the Bills. And again, Buffalo's going to be, I think they're going to have some snow up there as well, from what I saw. Uh, Ravens, between Jackson and King Henry, I mean, that's a tough duo to compete with. And then that opens up their passing game once that running game gets going. Uh, my heart wants to go with the Bills. I don't know if they have the offense though to keep up with Baltimore on this one.
Yeah, they played earlier this season, and I can't. I'm pretty sure it was in Baltimore, and Baltimore just wiped the field with the Bills, 35-10. And for that to happen to that, I'm a Dolphins fan, and I have to give respect to the Bills. They're a good team. They're a great team. Josh Allen has really shown. After the first year and a half of him being in the league, he's really shown that he's a legitimate franchise, on a Hall of Fame trajectory at this point. Um, I think that Baltimore's offense is suited to where it can play in any type of weather. Um, I just this is a tough one. This is a tough one because the Bills have the home field advantage here. The weather's not going to be good. But I think Baltimore's going to win it. I think Baltimore's so we're in full agreement on all of these. I think that might be the closest game of the weekend. Um, and I just think Baltimore is more battle tested, for lack of a better way to put it. And there's all the hype about how Lamar can't get it done in the playoffs. I think this is the year that he does. And so I think you're going to see a Ravens Kansas City championship game, and you're
That
going to see a
ground that
Lions.
ground game of Baltimore is what's gonna, they're gonna eat clock. They're going to be able to go down the field. The passing game, the Bills, they don't have much of one, it seems like.
Yeah,
And again, their run game's pretty good. But I think that Baltimore's just going to have more weapons at their disposal at key situations and critical downs. They'll be able to
yeah,
convert, I think, a little bit higher clip than the Bills will.
yeah. So are you picking Baltimore? You are picking Baltimore. You said right.
Yes, sir. I'm going to take them by a field goal.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you there. I think we're in agreement on all four games. Actually, I wasn't sure where you were going to go with the Bills, and
That's
that's
a
what's cool
card
about
blitz first, right? All four
right.
agreement card blitz first.
There's a lot of firsts going on right now. Um, but yeah, I just I don't when I talk about this kind of stuff with people, I don't in this kind of format, I don't like to go over what we're going to say beforehand because obviously what we're going to talk about, but then like how we're going to pick these games and things. I think it's cool to just see how we both kind of land. Same thing with another thing we're going to talk about here in a little bit with the running backs, but you know. So you had mentioned that you got the football picks in. You've mentioned that you got some pickups. I haven't really bought much this last month or so, but let's see what you
I mean,
what you
it's just one card. And I couldn't resist. And before we kind of got this card blitz thing rolling, I'd purchased it. It came in earlier this week. Um, like I said, my first set that I ever put together as far as football goes is the 1978 Topps football set.
right
So this card I couldn't say no, man, when it was as affordably priced as it was. So I'm going to slowly bring it
right
on
on.
here and see if you guys can get a good view of
Okay.
that.
Yep.
So
The
old
Super
Tony
Bowl card,
set
the
there,
the
yeah.
Tony Dorsett rookie. That's technically his rookie card, one of them,
One of
and
them from
that's
78, definitely.
yeah, that's a great card. That's a great card, and that's with my Yaz thing, and looks like with that card too. Buy the card, not the grade. So I mean,
Right.
that's a great card. You're a big Cowboys fan?
Oh, definitely.
I'm
Born and raised here
sorry.
in Dallas, and well, hey, I got to live through 5 victories.
That's true.
That
That's
first
true.
one over Miami, I wasn't really cognizant of what was going on, but
Right.
78, I definitely remember the 77 Super Bowl. I was, 7 years old and I was enjoying, sports back then. And Roger Staubach was my idol. And, Tony Dorsett, he came on the scene and he had a great run with the Cowboys. And that card, collecting all those 78 tops just kind of takes back those memories. And like I said, this one was affordably priced and it was one of those cards that, sure, it's not the highest grade, but it's one that I didn't pay an arm and a leg for, but I can display it and don't have to really worry about the card. But when I see it, it takes me back to my childhood, and that's what cards are for.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree 100%. That's one of the first Super Bowls. That's actually probably the first Super Bowl I remember. I was 7, almost 8 when the Cowboys beat the Broncos. And then the next year they go to play the Steelers and man, Jackie Smith drops that pass. And I didn't realize, I can still see him after he dropped it. He like lifted himself off the ground in the end zone because he was so upset. I didn't realize how good he was, for all that time. And
Yeah,
he
coming over
just,
from the Cardinals and being a great
yeah,
tight end, and he thought, yeah, he was going to get that chance with the Cowboys, and he got to the Super Bowl.
yeah,
But man, that
yeah, he
Steelers
sure did.
defense was something special too back then as well.
They sure were. Absolutely. Well, that's a great pickup. That's a great pickup. I don't have a lot that I'm really, really super excited about this week, and that's probably shouldn't say that, but um, that kind of you and I had been talking a little bit earlier in the week about maybe going over some of the things. One of the things you bounced off me was naming our running backs, naming our
Yeah,
top
yeah,
five
just
running backs.
yeah,
So
top five list of
yeah, yeah,
just our favorite five. And
okay,
so, uh, Tony Dorsett obviously kind of leads off as an honorary mention.
yeah,
But yeah, my number five is a guy that again, on field performance, 70s, definitely made a name for himself and was a centerpiece of the NFL. I got a little card here. Don't know if you guys can see it very well with the
okay,
flare, but 77 OJ Simpson card.
yes, yep,
And,
absolutely,
1,000-yard rusher right there. And I just think it was cool. I remember reading a story about, how he's called the Juice
yeah,
and playing for USC and growing up saying, hey, I'm going to play for that school. And then to end up with the Bills, it's
hmm
kind of full circle. But, he did something special there with his record, as, NFL record for most yardage in a season.
yeah,
It lasted for a good while
absolutely.
until Dickerson broke it. But OJ Simpson's my number five.
Okay. All right. OJ, I thought long and hard about putting him in at number 5 instead of the guy that I did. I just I I didn't see as much OJ, so that may swing my vote. But my number 5, OJ would be number 6 for me. So my number 5 is this guy, Earl Campbell.
The Tyler
The
Rose.
Tyler Rose. I just the best big back I've ever seen. His career wasn't as long, I guess, as some of the other guys, but the first 3 years he was in the league, he was the best running back. The first year he was in the league, in my opinion. So I've just always have had a kind of a thing for Earl Campbell. He wasn't on my team, but just watching him as an 8-year-old destroy us on Monday night in Houston, runs for 4 touchdowns, 180 yards, just so fast, so big, so powerful, running over people instead of around them. And just he's always been in my top 5. So Earl Campbell's my 5. So and that takes me to my 4, and then we'll go to your 4.
That'll work.
Emmett. I mean, you got to have Emmett in there somewhere just for longevity and for his records. So I mean, Emmett Smith, was he beneficial of having that line in Dallas and Aikman and Irvin and all that? Maybe, but still, I mean, you can't deny how long he played, how good he was, how many touchdowns that game he played against the Giants where his neck was all messed up.
His
You
shoulder.
know,
Yeah,
yeah, his
dislocated
shoulder,
his shoulder in the playoffs or to get into the playoffs. And he
right?
willed that team that year.
Yeah. So I mean, he had like 25 or 26 touchdowns that year, and he was just a machine. So he's from the area that I live in too, and he does some philanthropic stuff, and he's I don't think you can keep him off any top 5 running back list, honestly. So that's my Campbell at 5 for me, and Emmett at 4. So what's your number 4?
Well, Greg, I was going to say that I think it would be interesting to see how these play out because I think we're going to have some similar names. I don't know if they're going to equal at the same ranking of top five.
Right.
My number four is probably a little bit higher on your list, but I'm going with the one and only Barry Sanders.
Okay.
And I got this cool inscriptions card. It's an autographed card. It's out of 2053. So yeah, his
Move it
auto.
over. Move it over to your left a little bit. There you
Uh,
go. There you go.
yeah, it says
That's a nice card.
oh, it's in it. Yeah, and it's just cool. I mean, it's kind of like that acetate kind of card, but the graph came out decent, and so I know it doesn't do it justice here with the glare in my hand, and but yeah, old Barry. I mean, the way he could dominate a game, and he was so elusive, and just to me, he has to be in my top five.
Absolutely. And I'll give you my thoughts on Barry here in a few minutes. So, um, my number three. Why don't you go? Do you want to do your third now, or do you?
Yeah, sure, I'll do my
Yeah,
third.
go ahead and do three, and then I'll do three and two, and then you do two and one.
I'll do my three. You do your three and two, and yeah.
Sure.
So right here, sweetness.
Okay. Okay.
And so this card's from a really cool set. I don't know if you're familiar with it, the '97 Upper Deck Legends set.
No.
All these cool old like '70s and '60s and '50s players. And so when I look at that again, that takes me back to youth. And it's obviously it's not the most high dollar set, but it's collectible and it's tough to put together.
Absolutely.
And so it's one that I enjoy reading all the stats and the history of the players. So, but sweetness and Peyton's impact, he is the Bears.
Right.
Whenever you think of like a franchise player, an all-time great, he has to be up there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Peyton. Well, I'll give you my thoughts on him again here in a minute. So he he was something. All right. So my number three, and I kind of probably I debated on whether to keep it people I've seen play or people that I've just seen on film and heard of.
Mhm.
So I mean, you almost have to include Jim Brown. To me, just trendsetter, pioneer, whatever you want to call it for running backs. Jim Brown was dominant versus his peers. And I guess that's really the only way you can measure that is how was he against his peers at the time. Dan Marino. We talk about that some other time, but
We do our QB list one of these days.
yeah, absolutely. Because I know where he's at. So Jim Brown just seemed to dominate. I didn't see him play. Obviously, I'm not old enough, but dominant enough to where he should be in my top five. I can't really justify giving him two or one, but I think he needs to be on my list. So that's my thoughts on Jim Brown. He was an amazing player. Um, rest in peace, Jim. And that's my number three. So I'm going to go to my number two, and my number two, this guy, Walter Payton. So you
That's a
know,
great card too, man.
yeah, the 1977. I love that football too, the 1,000 yard thing. Have you ever seen that Mexican version where it says Osos?
Oh, dude, yes,
Oh,
it's very cool. And I don't know if you saw
yeah.
on eBay, they had a recent auction of that card. They had the Topps
Uh-uh.
Mexican, and it was a PSA 7 and
Yeah.
four large, like
Wow.
$4,000.
It's funny when I
Good
first
money,
started.
man.
Yeah, that's I first got back into this in 2019, and I had never even seen the Mexican cards when I was a kid, and I saw one on eBay that was like $75 for a Peyton, and
Mhm.
this was like 2020, early 2020, and I should have bought it, but I just didn't. I was like, man, $75. I had no idea how rare they were, and it hindsight. But yeah, that's a grail one to get for me for Peyton is the Osos card, the Bears. So anybody who doesn't know, Topps made a Mexican version in 1977 that are extremely hard to come by, especially in good condition. Kind of like the Venezuelan cards from Topps in baseball in the 60s. So the Mexican version. So Walter Payton's my number two. He to me just I was thinking about this with my own team with the Dolphins and wondering why more teams don't do what he did, or more running backs, where if he get to 4th and 1 or first and goal at the one, he just jump the pile and would
Hmm.
just jump over everybody. And I mean, he can't be the only person that could do that. There's got to be people that could do that now. No one ever does that, and I wonder why. And that made me think of Peyton, just how amazing he was and how smooth he was. And he'd run around you, he'd run through you, he'd run by you. So I mean, he just was something. He was great to me. So,
Complete back. He
hey,
could throw for touchdowns.
right, right. He he was just great. So I mean, I think he's number 2 all time for me. So, um, so who's your number 2? Let's. I'm curious.
Well, my number two is someone you had mentioned earlier, lives in your neighborhood.
Emmett. Okay.
Well, Emmett Smith here. So again, when you hold the all-time rushing record, all-time carries, all-time rushing touchdowns record, and part of three Super Bowl teams that won
Yeah.
titles. He cemented himself in the hobby and in history, and so he's my number two.
Okay. Yeah. Emmett really could be anywhere on this list, in my opinion. I think it really comes down. Anytime you do a subjective list like this, it's about personal preference. And Emmett, I ranked Emmett a little bit lower, I think, for me because of, you know, I'm gonna all right. So go ahead and show me your number one. And
Okay.
then I'll tell you why I rank Emmett so low.
What's funny how I mentioned earlier, like how we're gonna like this list is gonna play out. So my number one is none other than Saint Jim Brown.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
So this is a really cool jersey autographed card. Now, folks will
That's
say, hey,
very
not
cool.
into the sticker part, but when I got this card back, and I think it's probably 02, 01, and just having a Jim Brown autographed card was cool.
Yeah,
And a piece of the jersey, and
absolutely.
apparently it's numbered to 50.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
Nice card.
I picked that up. Like I said, 01, 02, I think. And so Jim Brown though, he sets the standard whenever you think of like all-time NFL running back great. To me, he's the
Yeah.
man. I think Jim Brown takes the cake.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can certainly make a case for that. I I think maybe my bias against I never saw him play maybe makes me drop him a little bit more, but it's hard to argue that he's not the best. But
Well,
to
he's the
me,
only
he's
running back though to earn three MVP awards.
wow.
Only
Wow.
one ever in history of the NFL, and then you top that off with leaving when he was still in great shape. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
the 10,000 yard rushing mark was like the standard. He set it. So
Oh
he
yeah.
did it in 12 game seasons back then.
Yeah, he sure did.
So,
That's what that's what I said as far as him being dominant. I mean, he went, less games, just the numbers that he put up and the amount of games he played was dominant. But I just balance it. Was the competition as good? So it's subjective, and I certainly can't argue with you putting Jim Brown at number one. So I mean, I got him at number three, and I never saw him play. So you should. Are you a grader? Do you send cars to get graded?
yeah, I do some. I mean, what's your question, man? I'm all ears.
Why don't you send that off? The Jim Brown. That's amazing.
Yeah, I've to be honest with you, kind of getting back into cards this back in 2023 in
Hmm.
March. So I don't know, man. To do the PSA thing, it's got some barriers to entry. Like you have to either go through someone that already has a membership, or you have to go get one yourself. And I don't know, man. I kind of
S-
go.
SGC it up, man.
Well, I like SGC a lot, man, and
They
so
look great.
yeah.
They look great. So,
I like Beckett too. If
yeah.
that's a story in itself, but
Oh yeah.
right the ship. But I think when it comes to like autographs and these thicker cards, Beckett might be the best route to go. And so I've got the card. I need to protect it
Yeah.
at some point. The question is when and which
Well,
company.
and I'm certainly nobody to throw stones in glass houses because I've never sent a single card to be graded. So I just wondered if you were a grader, and if you're a grading person, and if you are, that might be one to think about because that's a beautiful card. So good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. All right. Well, let
What
me
about
go
you,
with my
man?
number one.
What's your one?
Well, and speaking of people who retired at the top, This guy, Barry Sanders. He's my number one. I just he was just amazing to watch, and making something out of nothing, and how well he did on all those terrible teams. The reason I don't rank Emmett higher, I probably should, but you put Barry behind that line in Dallas, and he's breaking all kinds of records. In my opinion, I mean, I'm
Right.
thinking he's running for 2,500 yards and 40 touchdowns with that line in Dallas. So if I balance who did what with the least amount of support, I would put 1 and 2 at Barry and OJ, to be honest, because Buffalo was terrible when OJ was there.
Right. Right.
So that, why would you not put OJ on the list? I mean, the limiting it to 5 was tough for me, because there was, I thought about putting LaDainian Tomlinson on there. I thought about putting, Derrick Henry can make a case if he keeps going the way he's going. He's going crazy. But for me, number one is Barry. It's just, he would have shattered records if he'd had gone the normal trajectory, I think. He retired as the NFL's rushing leader.
He did go out on
Just,
top in that aspect, though.
yeah, just an amazing player. And for me, having watched Peyton, having watched Campbell, having watched Emmett, Barry was the best to me. So that's my opinion.
Well,
And
having watched Barry go against my Dallas Cowboys and then seeing the highlights years later on, like that Monday Night Football game,
oh yeah,
he made their defense look silly, and they were really good back then too.
yeah. What, isn't that the clip where he's running by one of them and
Oh,
some dude's like looking over his shoulder like,
yeah,
there you go. That's a great clip, man. Barry's just running right by him. He turned him around. Barry was something, man.
but
And
kind of you threw out the question though, what if Barry had the Cowboys team in the 90s?
yeah,
You know, the Cowboys had the number one draft pick in '89, and they
yeah,
went with Troy Aikman. So the Cowboys could have taken Barry.
right,
And if the Lions would have taken Troy, what would have happened to both franchises? That's a
right.
what if scenario all day, right?
Well, I'll say this. I don't think, and no disrespect to Troy Aikman, I think they probably could have made that work with probably 3 or 4 different people. Maybe not in that draft, but
That
that
'89
team
draft
was,
was really good. You're
oh,
looking
yeah,
at Thurman Thomas was a part of that, I believe, and
yeah.
Andre Rison. Uh,
Dion and Barry,
there was that Chief linebacker,
yeah.
Eric.
Derek Thomas. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, Derek Thomas. You know what's funny, though, is Barry wasn't the second pick. You know who the second pick was?
no, I'm all ears, man.
Tony Mandarich.
For the Raiders,
No, for the well, he got
Packers.
picked, the Packers. Green Bay took Tony Mandarich instead of Barry Sanders, and then Dion went to Atlanta. That's crazy. So I don't know, but well, we can talk about running backs all night.
Yeah, with time kind of running short because we're trying to keep this around 30, 35 minutes, and we're kind of on the clock. I mean, we could probably table some of the other talk if you want, or if you want to delve into like
Well,
one of the other two issues, we can do that too.
yeah, let's talk about the Hall of Fame. We can do that quick.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll talk about card show prep next time. So, the Hall of Fame, you listed some names: Ichiro, Sabathia, Billy Wagner. I'm looking at my list here: Billy Wagner and Carlos
Beltran.
Beltran and Andrew Jones.
Yeah,
So,
those are like the top five, right?
well, and I put one more on there who's Pujols. So, I think
Almost
Pujols.
eligible this season?
Oh, you're talking about just for this season? Never
Yes.
mind. Okay,
Yeah, I
strike
put it with
Pujols.
like the 2025
Okay.
NFTs.
I mean, to me, and you tell me what your opinion is here in a second. To me, the only no brainer on there really is Ichiro. I think he might be unanimous. I haven't checked because they show the voting kind of as it goes, so I haven't really looked at the Hall of Fame tracker. But Ichiro to me is a no brainer. I mean, if you add in Japan and the U.S., he's the all time hit leader, technically, all time hit leader. Um, Wagner's probably going to get in just from momentum. It seems like, with previous years totals.
He was so close. He was what, like
Yeah,
73.8% or whatever. So, and is this his last year to be on the ballot?
that I don't know. That I don't know,
I
and
think
that's
that's
my
the
fault for
case.
not researching that. But
I don't know. I
I don't.
think if that's the case, I think he gets over that hump.
So, what's your thoughts on Sabathia, Beltran, and Andrew Jones?
Dude, Andrew Jones, 1996. I was living over in Taiwan at the time, and I remember watching that World Series game one, Braves and Yankees, and I'd heard about Andrew Jones, but I did not see the power that he brought until he, hit a home run in his first at bat in the World Series to be the youngest player ever to do it at that point. He had
Did
a
he
good
hit two in
career
that
though.
game?
So I believe so.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the Braves took, I think, games one and two in that series, and then the Yankees stormed back and took four in a row.
yeah.
We talked about this last episode, just kind of growing up with WGN and TBS, and yeah, I was pulling for the Braves.
Yeah.
But the Yankees, yeah, they made it happen. But yeah, Andrew Jones had a great career with Atlanta. You know, I think he's still got a very realistic shot at getting in.
Yeah, he probably the best center fielder I think I've ever seen, really, as far as defensively, and I think he did enough offensively to get in. And I'm going to try to avoid using this much on this show, but if Harold Baines got in, that's your new benchmark. And I think,
Jones also, though, he won 10 straight like Gold Gloves.
oh yeah,
He has like
yeah,
430 plus home runs,
yeah,
not including
yeah,
like,
he should get in.
yeah, I think he does eventually.
I do too. Now, as far as Beltran,
I think Beltran, the whole Astros scandal kind
yeah,
of paints his legacy, and so if is he Hall of Very Good? Most definitely. Is he Hall of Fame? We'll see, man. I mean, he was Rookie of the Year, I think, for the AL back in '99. What else was
yeah,
about him? He has over 400 home runs.
yeah,
So and his postseason heroics are amazing.
yeah. He was great in the postseason. You're right.
So
I,
again,
I
the whole
think,
Astros thing is what kind of makes it murky.
yeah, yeah, that's going to hurt him, and I think you really could make a case for or against him. Honestly, he's one of those guys. There's multitude of reasons to put him in, and then there's others to keep him out. So, will he eventually get in? Maybe. I don't know though. I don't. That's a toss up. I don't think he gets in anytime in the next 2 or 3 years. I think there might be some momentum that builds for him, but the Astros thing. You're right. It hurts him. It doesn't help. And didn't he get hired by the Mets and then fired like on the same day for some? Yes. I mean, it hasn't gone well for him the last 7 or 8 years. So
No, no, definitely
you
not.
know,
You
and then,
mentioned Sabathia, kind of
yeah,
leading to that. I mean, 3,000 strikeout club, and we talked about like, hey, what do you have? You have numbers, and so that number to me is a significant number. He won a World Series. He's been a Cy Young. I think for him, if he doesn't get in this year, next year he'll definitely be in next season for sure. Next year, but
yeah. I think
I think he's got a real good shot this year though.
yeah. He might. I think he's of either him or Beltran or Wagner. Wagner's going to get in, I think. So I think this year you're going to see Ichiro and Wagner, and then of the three, I think Sabathia will get in the quickest.
Yeah.
So Andrew's getting some support. He's been over 50%, I think, the last 2 years. He and Beltran. I mean, if you look at numbers, Beltran had a longer, better career overall, but you can't take the defensive metrics out for Andrew, especially when you combine, like you said, 400 plus home runs. So I think all three of them might eventually get in. I think the least chance, honestly, is Beltran, and I think that's just you know some intangibles maybe. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. They're announcing those here in a couple of days, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think on Tuesday the 21st.
Okay, well, maybe when we reconvene, we can discuss who actually made it and see how we did, and along with our picks too. So,
Definitely. Well, let me ask you this. Do you have many Ichiro cards?
I have a slabbed rookie card, a PSA 7.
Is
But no,
it
I don't have a ton.
tops a one or
Yeah, yeah, the green one.
okay? I've
Yeah,
got a raw one, but that
yeah,
I submitted for grading that I pulled back in the day. But
right.
you
I
know,
I was the 2001 was the dark ages for me, so I didn't collect. I didn't even think about cards really for like 20 25 years. But yeah, I bought a PSA 7 off a Facebook group for like $12. So I mean, sign me up. This is like 5 years ago, so I've had it sitting. I don't even know where it's at anymore. Um, but yeah, why do you ask though? I mean, are you
oh, I mean, I'm just kind of curious. How much of an impact does making the hall impact like card pricing? Especially when you look
well?
at something like a Chiro or even Wagner Sabathia, like it's not like it's just on the scene and the market hasn't had time to adjust. Card collectors that are in the hobby, they're prepping for this day.
Well, to end this on a quick note, my thoughts on that, I think if there's any doubt that they're going to make it and then they do, you definitely see a bigger bump than you do like Ichiro's going to get. Everybody knows he's going in the Hall of Fame. But like a guy like Fred McGriff or, Rich Allen,
Mhm.
that just got in with the Veterans Committee, when there's some gray area or you're not sure somebody's going to make it, I think the bump is bigger than something already being baked in, like priced in with Ichiro. So it's an interesting question.
Well, the
Um,
smart move then, when did Ichiro retire?
2019, maybe. If
Okay,
this is his first year, that then 2019, yeah.
so let's say in 2019, you were in the hobby. Did you buy that card or get that card like as soon as you knew he was hanging his hat up and he's going to be a sure, fire Hall of Famer?
No, no, I bought it because I thought it was cheap. It was the reason I really wanted to get it. I actually bought it in 2020 because Project 2020 had come out. I don't know if you saw any of those.
Mhm.
And Ichiro, that card was one of the ones they were doing on Project 2020. So I bought a bunch of those early, and we do a show about that. How fortunate I was with that. Um, but no, they that kind of got me looking at that card, and then I saw it, and the guy was offering it for $12, and it's already slabbed. I mean, it's a PSA 7, so I mean, it's probably worth 30. But I just wanted it, and I didn't really think about the Hall of Fame because I knew he was going to go in someday. But Fred McGriff is a good example of somebody that got almost a double price bump on his rookie card when he got in. So
On that note, we probably need to wrap it up for Card
yeah,
Blitz.
we're running out of time.
Yeah, we'll have to continue our stories next time, man.
Thanks everybody.
Give us a like.